Earthquakes are a very large natural hazard. South Carolina specifically has had a lot of history with earthquakes. There are a lot of characteristics of earthquakes that decide what effect they have. Based on the history of South Carolina's earthquakes, we can predict any risk there may be for future earthquakes. By observing these risks, we can figure out ways to try and reduce any future earthquakes from occurring.
So, speaking of the characteristics of earthquakes in South Carolina, we have most of them are based on location. So, South Carolina, the tectonic setting of it has to do with like a lot of inferred and known faults in it. So, not necessarily true subduction zones, but they're still what they call interplate faults. Because of this, this creates like a lot of stress around areas such all over the state. Actually, there are faults found. Mainly around Charleston, there are quite a few, and then up north around Union County, there are also some fault lines. So one characteristic of the earthquakes in South Carolina would be that they occur around these fault lines in the major cities, as I just said. In addition to this, South Carolina is on the coast. So what this means is that the majority of the state is, like the bedrock, the actual bedrock of it is deep down, buried under layers of sand and mud, stuff like that. So, what this has to do, most of the earthquakes occur deep down where the actual bedrock is, which creates a kind of characteristic of location as well as the damage that occurs on the surface. Because most of the state is made up of sand, one often, I guess, phenomenon is called liquefaction, where the sand actually just, as it gets shaken, becomes more liquefied and doesn't support the actual buildings that are on top of it. So altogether, the characteristics most often seen in South Carolina earthquakes would be the location of them, depth as well as geographical location, and then the also damage that occurs.
South Carolina lies inside of the North American plate. The interplate faults within that plate are the cause for most of South Carolina's earthquakes. The stress that builds up in these fault lines create the earthquakes that occur in the state. These fault lines are believed to appear in the middle of this plate because of the old fault systems that are being reactivated. South Carolina's earthquakes mostly take place on the coastline where the rock is weak. One earthquake that left a big impact happened in Charleston in 1886. It was felt over 2.5 million square miles at a magnitude of 7.3, being one of the biggest earthquakes recorded in South Carolina. Some more recent earthquakes occurred in 2001 in the Summerville seismic zone that ranged from an 8.82 to a 2.75 magnitude.
South Carolina is a high-risk spot for future earthquakes. South Carolina is divided into three regions. Region number one is low country. This area has a possibility for having a large earthquake in the future. Earthquakes in this area can happen about every 400 to 500 years. Region 2, Midlands. This area is not known to have a large earthquake in the past. However, there are some smaller earthquakes happen in this area. Region 3 is Piedmont and Blue Ridge. This area is at the low risk of having a major earthquake in the future. So, how do you reduce the impact of earthquakes? First, you should buy earthquake insurance and build earthquake resistant building, install adequate warning system. And for the house, place heavy stuffs on the ground, secure ceiling fan and hanging stuff on the wall. During an earthquake, drop down on the floor and take cover under any desk or table. While you're taking cover under desk or table, hold on to it and prepare to move with it. When outdoor, move to clear area away from trees and high buildings.